a video. I kept forgetting that I wanted to see this. Casual put out a video about an animal that we've talked about before, but now it's actually dedicated to it's actually dedicated to this one specific animal. No, not cats. Not cats. No. He's did a video about crows. He's done a video about crows. We've talked about crows in casual videos before about being highly intelligent. And I forgot that he had put this out, so let's check this out. Because I like crows. I mean, I think crows are awesome birds. I think they're absolutely amazing birds and are the subject of, are part of one of my favorite movies of all time. So I really want to dig into this, and let's see what Casual can teach us about crows or corvids that we do not already know.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Do you have any idea how stressful a street war with birds would be? No, you don't. Because you don't live in Tokyo. Tokyo has a gang problem. The problem is the members aren't human and can fly. At one point, there were more than 36,000 crows crowding the eastern capital, thanks to the massive amounts of trash produced by the city each year. Crows are basically monkeys minus thumbs, but with unlimited airtime, and as
But by the way, he was like, listen to this statistic again.
There were more than 36,000 crows crowding the eastern capital, thanks to the
36,000 crow. Imagine how many there are. Why is what the hell happened there? Okay, I don't know why my ears didn't pop on that one. I'll have to look into that. If there are that many crows in the capital, can you imagine how many are in New York right now? Can you imagine how many are in New York right now? With all the trash that has been piling up there. Because don't forget, with New York, they have not been doing trash collection, and then all that, that big dump of snow covered it all up. And now that the snow is melting, all that trash has been revealed. Think about how many crows there are currently in New York going after all of that trash right now. It has to be freaking double or triple what's in the capital.
Massive amounts of trash produced by the city each year. Crows are basically monkeys minus thumbs, but with unlimited airtime, and as corvids, along with others like ravens, jackdaws, and magpies, make up the smartest group of things with wings on the planet. Smart enough to use cars as nutcrackers, only to collect when the walk sign's on, and smart enough to memorize garbage routes for different parts of the city, just to snatch trash before the workers do. But a habitual feather menace won't just wait for you to trash it, as Tokyo crows have robbed people to steal their loot. The bird called Garasu has bloodied the faces of school children while trying to make off with candy, and have even broken into classrooms to raid lunchboxes. They'll also storm zoos for a living lunch, often in the form of kidnapping baby prairie dogs and ducklings. Not to mention they'll attack livestock, pecking at the udders and causing cuts that can lead to infection. That is if they don't just bleed out. In 2017, Tokyo's government received over 600 complaints of civilians thrashed by the aerial urbanite, with most coming in the spring, their nesting season. Which brings another problem. Crows nesting in utility poles have caused blackouts, and using fiber optic cables as material has brought down entire broadband networks. One time even shutting down high-speed bullet train service in Akita. Hundreds of millions in yen are spent each year removing nests, with the Hokuriku Electric Company stripping 15,880 in 2018. Yet somehow the crows seem to shake it off. How? Well, because the crows started making decoy dummy nests to lead them away from the real ones. Crows and Tokyoites have been beefing for years, but it didn't escalate until a certain event in 2001, when one crow decided to dive bomb a man while he was playing golf. That man was Governor Shintaro Ishara, and he swiftly
No! Oh!
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
You dive bombed a government official in Japan. you seriously fucked up on that one.
Declared conflict on the corvids, with promises of changing Japan's national dish to crow pie. Since then, it's been on site and flight, with the government trying everything to combat a vindictive air terrorist, employing hawk mercenaries to try to fight fire with feathers, and even installing beehives in the heart of Ginza, so the Ginpachi can give the crows a taste of arguably even more of a flying crash out. But one thing about Japan, you don't with the Yakuza, and these air gangsters have been testing people in ways arguably no other city animal ever has. And for all humanity's hubris, this might be the one time we have to eat crow. And not in the way that Chiji had in mind. So how did a bird manage to humble a nation the most since the Emu War?
Yeah, they do. Like, crows are incredibly intelligent and have excellent memories. I won't delve too much into it because I'm pretty sure Casual is going to go into the scientific testing that they did to actually test a crow's memory and intelligence, and you're going to see firsthand just how scary smart these things are.
32, because at least emus are damn near dinosaur size. Well, like almost everything else, it started with our garbage. Tokyo produced 3.52 million metric tons of trash in 2001, and in 1994, the government switched from
Yes, crows are known to be nuisances in Canada. I cannot tell, like, when I used to live in Newfoundland, I actually had to, whenever I put my garbage out, I had to, like, I had to make it a routine that when I put the garbage out, I had to sacrifice an old bed sheet to bring out with me to cover my garbage, because if I did not cover my garbage, by the time the garbage truck made it to where I lived, the garbage was just like strewn everywhere. Like the crows had torn through the bags and strewn garbage everywhere, and I have to actually go out there with gloves and pick it all up and put it into a fresh garbage can or garbage bag. So yeah, I actually had to, and it was very common practice when I lived in Newfoundland to cover whenever you put trash out, to cover it with a sheet, to cover it with like netting, so the crows couldn't get to it. And where I'm currently living, it's not quite as bad because when I put my trash out, it's nighttime. And so the birds are all nesting and sleeping. And by the time the garbage where I live currently operates early enough that the garbage is collected before the birds can get to it, at least during the winter hours. So I have not had to worry about covering my garbage where I currently live. Back in Newfoundland, though, yeah, you had to, like, they were bad about getting into the garbage, like really bad. And I imagine it's true for a big part of mainland Canada as well. They are just as problematic in terms of going after garbage as they were in Japan and as they are in America. Absolutely.
Metric tons of trash in 2001, and in 1994, the government switched from black plastic bags for curbside pickup to semi-see-through calcium carbonate options. The intent was to reduce environmental impact, but a consequence was that Scatter Chappie could now see what was in the bags and had a much easier time finding takeout. In recent years, Tokyo has seen a rise in bears and boars commuting into the city for trash, and wild macaques have continued to be a problem. But according to a wildlife management study, out of the 10 major invasive species, it was crows that caused the highest percentage of harm, and it was also crows that people were most in favor for lethal measures against. The gag is, crows in Tokyo aren't invasive, people just hate them off principle. But if just liking trash was the only barrier of entry, Japan would have more problems than a flying black Air Force. The problem is, crows had a counter for almost everything thrown at them. First is that crows have great memories and hold grudges. In 2006, remember that year, the University of Washington conducted an experiment where 7 crows were trapped and eventually released by people wearing scary masks. Not too long after, study leader Professor John Marsloff was strolling the campus with a mask when 47 out of the 53 crows he encountered violently rejected to his presence. Each following year, the number of vindictive on-site campus crows grew and peaked in 2013, even though at this point they'd only see the mask twice a year for a few hours, and especially even though most of the crows on the offensive weren't even alive at the start of the study. It wasn't until September 2023 that the harassment eventually stopped, and it probably wasn't even that they forgot, just that it took 17 years for them to drop the vendetta. There's also the implication that crows can communicate so well that even those born after the study could instantly tell which masks meant bad. So yeah, that memory is good for more than just garbage routes. You do wrong by a crow, you're screwed for a very long time. which Tokyoites have learned the stressful way. One man, Hiroshi Takaku, saw a couple of his colleagues being attacked by a few crows and fended them off by swinging his belt. The crows backed off, but the next day, they returned to work to find hundreds of crows posted up on their building of business, waiting for them. So safe to say.
By the way, chat, you are aware what a gathering of crows is called, correct? Do you know what they call a gathering of crows? A murder. A murder of crows. Think about it.
Conventional extermination doesn't really work on an animal that can learn the look of the workers doing it and will mob them on sight. They also tried traps where they bait the crows with food like lard and then gas the captured crows with carbon monoxide. But not only was that method way more costly than it was worth, they didn't expect the group of goth tweeties named Murder to turn death into a life lesson. Crows have funerals, but not the kind that you think where they mourn the dead. In fact, they're more likely to okay, anyway. When a crow sees another dead crow, it'll often call out to the surrounding birds and they'll all gather around the fallen member to investigate the cause of death. A study even found that the sight of the deceased triggers activation in the part of the brain associated with higher order decision making. Because crows understand cause and effect enough to realize that a threat to one is a threat to all. So they'll
wait, so these crows, these crows literally go CSI murder. They literally do a crime scene investigation on what killed one of their number to figure out what killed it so they know what to look out for. That's scary. That's pretty fucking scary that they will actually do a full crime scene analysis of what killed one of their members to know what to look out for or to attack what went after one of their own. He tried.
Recruit others to investigate the cause of death. It's why crows will sometimes avoid a field for years if they see a past tense crow there once. The same study also found that crows will harass any human seen near the corpse, likely pinning the death on them, but will also do the same if they see a human with a hawk, probably realizing that a hawk and a human can equal a bad time. So mass crow killings barely put a dent in the population. And speaking of hawks, they weren't as effective as the government hoped, as although big enough hawks will murk crows, crows will use their numbers to effectively mob birds of prey and chase them off. You see where I'm going with this, right? These Flyinsteins had a counter for everything. The Tokyo terrors would avoid areas with traps, and any crow deaths were likely reported on and adjusted for by the greater crow community. And let me just remind you that crows were out here making decoy nests to slow their human ops down. Even with the crow cavalry falling from its near 40,000 population peak, in 2010 there were still an estimated 20,000 running the naked city, causing the government to get even more creative. This is how bad it got. Tokyo had researchers studying more than 10,000 different crow sounds and isolating the specific sound they make in response to a predator and playing those calls on loudspeakers near trash sites. Basically what pilot whales do to orcas, Japan had to resort to with a bird. But really, the only thing that made a difference was regulating the very problem that caused it. People started covering their trash with blue protective tarps, and Utsunomiya University.
Yes, this is precisely.
People started covering.
This is precisely what we had to do back in Newfoundland. I did not, unfortunately, I did not have access to any netting like this, so I had to resort to sacrificing a bed sheet specifically for garbage. But yeah, this is what we had to do in Newfoundland for our garbage. Otherwise, the garbage bags would literally get torn apart and the trash strewn about everywhere, and then we'd have to pick all of it up.
Their trash with blue protective tarps, and Utsunomiya University professor Shui Sugira helped develop a special yellow garbage bag that the crows couldn't see through. And it had to be a very specific yellow or else it wouldn't work. Many places like restaurants in Ginza pivoted to having their garbage collected at night, instead of the crows' prime time of late morning. But by far the most effective.
By the way, and when he was talking about how the scientists were basically gathering intel on different crow sounds and everything, that's not the first time that scientists have done that with the animal kingdom. I remember watching a special about wolves. There was a gentleman, for the life of me, I cannot recall his name, but it was a show called Living with Wolves. And basically this researcher had a wolf pack of 4 wolves, I believe it was. And he would actually live with the pack. He would wear the same clothes, would never wash them, He would, he would basically spend all day with the wolves. He would, he literally integrated himself into the pack structure. And I believe he actually facilitated himself as the quote unquote, note the distinction there, alpha. So he basically integrated himself as the pack uh to basically be the head of the pack, and he was like learning about their behaviors. He was learning about about pack structure and hierarchy. He was learning about their communication, how they communicated both verbally and non-verbally. So he dedicated his life to spending all of his time with the wolves to learn about that. And what he did is he was able to learn their calls, their howls. And what he did is he used that knowledge to basically record specific wolf howls, so that like farmers in neighboring communities, when they would have wolves encroaching on their land, he would take recordings to these farmlands, and over big loudspeakers, he would play these wolf howls to designate that this territory is controlled by another pack, and use specific howls that was to deter other packs from encroaching upon the territory. And interestingly enough, what happened at the conclusion of him going out and going to these farm areas and essentially repelling these wolf packs with the recorded wolf howls, is when he came back, he had basically been rejected from his leadership position in the pack. When he got back, the wolves would no longer accept him as the head of the pack, and he got relegated to basically a peacekeeper status. So one of the other wolves took on the leadership position, and they refused to allow him back in a leadership position, but they did let him back into the pack. And he was basically the mediator. If the other wolves were kind of getting into it with one another, he would kind of get into the middle and break up any fights between members of the pack. So it's like, to talk about recording like the wolf or recording the crow sounds to use to try and like figure out with the crows made me think of that story regarding the wolves. And I just wanted to tell that story because I found it to be so fascinating of like what this man was able to do and how he was able to really understand wolf behavior and use it to benefit humanity. So I just wanted to tell that story.
Measure was just making less trash in the first place, and Tokyo's 3.52 million metric tons of trash in 2001 was cut down to 2.45 million in 2024. Eventually, the crow numbers would start to chip away, and in 2026, the population is only 20% of its peak 2 decades ago. That was the only way a trash terrorist was going to be beat, as bird experts noted that the traps would only work on younger, dumber crows, and that the birds even figured out how to work around the protective tarps. But some experts worry that the war isn't over, that it's only a matter of time before the next wave of street-smart crow fiends rise up again. Crows are just too smart to be defeated by conventional methods, because crows are not a conventional bird. In fact, they might have the most unconventional form of self-defense. Crows are the biggest trolls in the animal kingdom, and I don't think it's close. But what if I told you the rage bait's strategic? Let me explain. Crows are omnivore opportunists, and a lot of those opportunities come from scavenging, but scavenging can put them up against much bigger, more powerful predators. So crows will often be so annoying that they force the competition to rage quit, and they'll do this by pulling feathers, and they'll do this to some of the largest birds of prey. Stellar sea eagles are big enough to catch an AI accusation, but a crow will still tail check them. And in this video, you start to see why, with this crow pulling up on 2 turkey vultures and repeatedly baiting one of them until the vulture finally has enough and makes it the bystander's problem, allowing the crow access to the bird bath. An even more extreme example was a crow arriving at a fresh carcass and waiting for stronger vultures to tear into the hide he couldn't. And with the gift box open, the crow immediately started pulling tails and testing patience, until eventually the troll bird instigated a vulture brawl, during which he snuck in and stole him a piece. It seems the habitual mindset was the crow to counter
He fucking trolled the vultures. He gaslit the vultures into fighting with each other so he can come in and go, and joint his food. They are like pro-gaslighters.
on with brain. But crows will use troll tendencies on anything from seagulls to eagles, from deer to dogs. But there's one animal that always seems to fall for the rage bait. The number of catfights provoked by crows is actually insane. I don't know what that crow said to that cat to make him crash out like that, but surely someone's mother was
God!
And then they're always right there to enjoy the violent fruits of their instigation. Crows don't want
tried.
peace, they thrive off problems. Just to hover above it like a boxing promoter. Now it's possible the crows recognize the cats as a threat, and this is a 900 IQ play to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or 2 cats with 1 crow. It would make sense for crows to turn cats on each other, especially if they have fledglings or a nest nearby. But crows are also smart enough to just do stuff for fun, and they're smart enough to use tools to do it. So I could 100% see crows using live cats as tools for their own amusement. Especially since in a lot of these clips, the crows don't look like they have anything to gain. No food, no agenda, just free will and love of the game. So what do you think? Anti-predator measures, resource access strategy, or just pure trolling? Who's to say it's not all 3? Well,
I think it might be pure trolling. As smart as when you get an animal that has a very high intellect like crows do, where they have excellent memories, they have a higher communication network amongst themselves, that they had, he's probably, he might go into it shortly, where they can actually use tools. Any animal that has that high level of an intelligence, that they also know that fucking with someone can be funny as hell and fun as hell. So absolutely, I think that they're trolling just for the lulz. I 100% believe that. Because you cannot be that smart and not come up with humor. So, yeah, I'm right there and believe it.
Whatever it is, it does unlock a new level of the crow's IQ. Theory of mind is the ability to recognize that other beings have thoughts and mental states that can be used to predict or even manipulate behavior. Here's a quick test. Let's say person A puts a sandwich in the office refrigerator, but then person B comes along and takes the sandwich out the fridge and puts it in a pencil drawer. At lunchtime, where's the first place person A would look? If you have theory of mind, you'd say the fridge because that's where A left it, and you know that they don't know that person B is a sandwich thieving waste of carbon. Now, if you're thinking, well, obviously no shit. Well, congratulations. You have the emotional bandwidth of at least a toddler. But crows have shown advanced levels of theory of mind just by knowing that if they frustrate a cat long enough, the cat will eventually take it out on a fellow cat. Another example is crows will often hide food, but will also pretend to hide food if they know they're being watched, making a big show out of it and even making sounds associated with being happy just to keep the food stuff in their beak and hide it for real later. And it's the crows that do the stealing that are most likely to perform theft insurance, meaning they can put themselves in the mind of another crow and act accordingly. Now, I don't want to act like this is a super complex thing. Like, squirrels will do the same misdirection to protect their nuts. We're just gonna ignore that they often forget where they put them for real, and that ADHD builds forests. But crows take it further than anything with a walnut-sized brain should. Crows building dummy nests to fool Tokyo bird control is another example. But my favorite example was this story of a crow that got bullied off parking lot fries by 2 seagulls, and after repeatedly trying to take back what was his, seemingly gave up and flew off and appeared to find what looked like other food. Well, of course, this
Okay, that's interesting what he's showing in the background. What he's showing in the background is this crow has got a nut. And crows have figured out that if they drop nuts from an elevated height, that they can crack the nuts and get to the goodness inside. So they have learned how to crack open a nut that they can't simply peck open with their beak.
their food. Well, of course, this got the seagulls' attention, and with all their biblical greed, they flew over to steal again. And while the seagulls were left with the stick the crow was posturing as food, the crow was able to spin back and take the fries, their pride, and the W. Along with theory of mind, crows were also able to pass Aesop's test. In this one, the animal would need the foresight to understand that they could reach a treat in a small tube by dropping stones to raise the water level high enough. Raccoons were able to pass the test, as were apes, although they got creative, with an orangutan spitting water into the tube to grab the prize, and a chimpanzee just peeing in it. When it was the crow's turn to step to the plate, not only did they pass, they knew enough to use solid sinking objects over those that float, and understood that using the same logic with a tube full of sand made no sense. That performance put the crow on par with a 5 to 7-year-old child, which again, is pretty solid for an animal with a brain the weight of 3 years. Interestingly, crows did not pass the mirror test, and save for 2 European magpies, corvids in general didn't seem to recognize the bird in the mirror. But they do seem to understand the concept of reflection, with Caledonian crows able to find hidden food that was only visible by looking at a mirror from a certain angle. But forget everything.
Interesting.
Did you know crows can understand analogy? Being able to clock an analogy like bird is to air what fish is to, water, was believed to be a strictly human trait, but studies show that primates like chimpanzees and even monkeys like baboons can learn the concept. So how do we figure out crows can too? I'm gonna explain, but first, you gotta lock in. Okay? Lock in. Alright, let's do it. So this test, led by Edward Wasserman of the University of Iowa, started off pretty simple. First, they trained 2 hooded crows to match the correct card to the sample card. They'd have 3 cards and 2 cups. The card in the middle would be the sample card, and it would be something like 2 blue circles. And the 2 cards would be on top of the 2 cups, and one card might be something like 1 red and 1 blue circle, and the other one could be a square and a triangle. See, now the crow would have to understand that the correct card would be the one that also has 2 circles, and picking the right one would reveal a juicy mealworm at the bottom of the cup. The other cup contains nothing, because wrong answers deserve nothing. Another example would be if the middle card had 2 pink squares, and option 1 had a pink circle and a pink triangle, and option 2 had 2 green triangles, then the correct answer would be the one that also has all pink. The crows passed easily. But that wasn't the experiment. That was the warm-up. Because I just described identity matching to sample, IMTS. The real test would be if they could solve relational matching to sample, or RMTS. RMTS basically means if the sample pair is AA and your options are BB and CD.
Actually, it's almost like the identity matching sample. It feels like it's also a test for understanding correlations. So like the crow is able to determine, like, okay, there's 2 blue circles, and then there's two circles, 1 blue and 1 other color, and then there's the other one that had the squares. So it was able to correlate that out of the 2 shapes, this one is more similar to the card, and so it was able to correlate 2 circles to the 2 circles. And in the second test, it was able to correlate, okay, this one, the sample card is pink, and while the shapes are different, the one card is pink and the other one's green, and so it was able to correlate, or extrapolate, I should say, that it's looking for pink and pink, not pink and green, regardless of the shapes. So it's also like, almost feels like it's starting to test like correlation and extrapolation of samples to, basically do creative or expanded thinking. It's really interesting.
RMTS basically means if the sample pair is AA and your options are BB and CD, then the right answer would be BB. You would pick BB. If the sample was CD and your options were EF and GG, you'd pick EF. See, now that's analogical thinking, because AA and BB aren't literally the same, but they are in terms of the relationship the letters in the pair.
Yes, dark music. Oh, yes. Dark, your music video was amazing. The music was fantastic, and the visuals were stunning. Absolutely stunning. They were fantastic. You did an amazing job. An absolutely amazing job. Thank you so much for making it for everybody to see. I know everybody's going to enjoy it. Wonderful work. And yes, I did say I'm not very good at dancing, other than kind of just, slow dancing, but I would be happy to dance with you. I would. And thank you for the gifted, Sab. Thank you very much.
Have to each other. So right here, the crow would have to understand that because the sample card has 2 different samples, then the card with the reward would also have 2 different shapes. Nice. Alright, try it again. Bueno. Now you want to hear the kicker?
Hesitation!
They were not.
Whoa. There was no hesitation there.
Alright, try it again.
Even as it was being slid, the crow already knew. The crow already knew. This thing had not even stopped moving, and it already knew exactly where to go.
Again.
Holy shit.
Bueno. Now you want to hear the kicker? They were not trained to do this. They got this on the first try. They went straight from IMTS to analogical thinking, completely on their own. We're still talking about crows.
Thank you, Dark.
And Wasserman said it. It'd be one thing if they were brute.
Honestly, if it was only brute force that the crows showed this learning, then it would have been an impressive result, but this feat was spontaneous.
Forced into learning. But the fact that they were able to reason their way into the right answer on the fly, you almost have to reevaluate how smart you think they are. And that's why you're not ready for the crow revolution. Their greatest weapon is their mind, and you can get wrecked purely off of pattern recognition. Lisa Joyce was attacked by crows during a 4th of July celebration in Vancouver. What was weird was, out of the hundreds of people outside, Lisa was the only victim. The harassment only got worse to the point where she had to change her commute because a literal murder would be waiting for her outside on her way to work. After weeks of avian abuse, she stumbled across a local Facebook support group with women talking about their crow trauma, and other than, being Tweety's target practice, Lisa noticed all the women had one thing in common. They all had long, blonde hair. As for why blonde bias? Well, you might find your answer in Seattle. That's where science writer and fellow blonde Lynn Peoples was jogging when she took multiple bird strikes to the back of the dome. Later in her jog, she saw a man, probably having a mental episode, absolutely crashing out at the birds at the park, chasing and kicking at them, birds that included crows. He also had a long ponytail. Guess what color it was? You can catch heat from a murder as a bystander.
Oh,
and
no.
Your only options are to move, dye your hair, or I guess you could wait in the house for 17 years like a cicada. Crow hate crimes have gotten so common, someone developed
Wow.
an app to track crow attacks, and crow tracks quickly gained thousands of reports. As much as I love crows,
Shit.
I can understand why people are terrified of them. They're the most human bird on the planet, and that is
Yeah.
really uncomfortable to some people.
They're the most quote-unquote human bird on the planet, and they hold a grudge. And they've got bigger numbers than you do. Whoa. So what are we learning here? Always be nice to your crows. Any crows that are in your area, be nice to them. Or you see what might happen. Haha.
Comfortable to some people. Well, let me make it worse. Because corvids like crows, but especially ravens, have had a relationship with wolves that is
Yes.
eerily familiar. You see,
This
corvids
is
will
numb.
scavenge off wolves' leftovers, but often it's the flying dry snitch that leads the pack to them in the first place. And
Yeah, I don't know how deeply he's going to get into this. Yeah, they do, like, crows and wolves have had a relationship for a long time where basically crows will function almost like scouts for the wolves, and they will find prey for the wolves. They will, like, circle above the prey, and the wolves know that when the crow is circling like that, it's basically indicating there's prey here, come make your kill, and then after the wolves make their kill, yeah, it's effectively a symbiote. I'm not even sure if I would classify it as a symbiotic relationship. It's more like a partnership. I would almost classify it as a partnership versus a symbiotic relationship. It's like there's an understanding between the two of them. I think that wolves and crows have kind of like worked this out, so to speak. And so the crows will find potential prey and they'll circle it, indicating to the wolves, here's prey. The pack will come in, will kill the prey, and then the crow will come in and scavenge off of the wolves' kill after they've eaten their full, and then they'll just do it all over again. So, yeah, it's mild symbiotic. Okay, it's like it. Maybe it's just me. Symbiotic doesn't feel quite like it doesn't feel quite right in terms of its labeling, but yeah, like I can see why it's like a somewhat symbiotic, somewhat partnership. I can see why it'd be classified that way.
in return, the wolves seem to tolerate the birds picking at the meat once the wolves have ripped it open.
Mutualism?
But it's not
Okay,
just a
there you
business
go.
relationship, as ravens and crows have been seen playing with wolves in Yellowstone, sometimes grabbing sticks to play tug-of-war, or sometimes
If I
even
remember
flying-
right, crows can actually learn how to talk or can do something similar to it.
Yeah, pirate. We saw in. Hang on, we actually saw an example of this. Let me find it. Hang on. I can't find the. Yeah, yeah, crows can be taught to mimic sound, mimic words. He showed it twice in this video. A woman who has a crow as a pet and is actually like talking. Now granted, it's just mimicking. It's not actually formulating a full-on like free-thinking conversation. It's mimicking it just like parrots do. But yes, crows can actually mimic speech. They have they haven't gotten to the point where they've literally used that speech to like actually verbalize their thoughts or anything of that nature, but absolutely they are capable of mimicry
above the wolves to get them to jump at them. The birds seem to especially favor playing with wolf pups, and naturalists watching swear by corvids having emotional bonds with specific members of the pack. Not to mention Caledonian crows, the ones that pass the tube test, can not only use tools, but they'll build them, like with multiple steps. Like if you give a Caledonian a box with food and a bunch of sticks, but none of the sticks are long enough to reach the prize, the crow has the presence of mind to combine multiple sticks to retrieve the treat. That kind of compound tool use basically puts them at primate tier. So let's see here, able to use tools, hold grudges, wage straight up war, befriend wolves, understand analogies. Yeah, either they're the humans of birds or we're the crows of primates. And that's probably the biggest reason why people fear them. They're arguably the biggest threat to human hubris. If Thanos snaps us all out of existence, don't be surprised if we come back to a black Air Force in the driver's seat. And that's gonna do it for this video. Drink water, hug your mother. I for one welcome our imminent avian overlords, just for anyone watching. Acknowledge your father, and I'ma see y'all in the next one.
Aww. Oh, it's so cute. Yeah, that was a cute little crow. Yeah, crows are scary smart. They're legit scary smart, and that's why you don't want to mess with them. That's why I said, if you see crows around by you, be nice to the crows. They will thank you for it, and you will thank yourself for it too.